Welcome to the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts in the e-com industry and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes in growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Chronos.agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-com brand that is ready to scale and double your customer lifetime value through retention marketing, Chronos is your company. We've helped hundreds of brands scale profits through email, SMS, and mobile push while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, Elias Skin, and Dr. Living Good, and many more. Now, the next step is to email us at sales@chronos.agency, or you can go to chronos.agency to learn more. Today's guest is Jason Wong. He's the founder of Doe Lashes, a wildly successful one-year-old brand, and Wonghaus Ventures, where Jason consults and helps other brands scale with services in sourcing, manufacturing, fulfillment, and marketing. Now, he's also a consultant and advisor to brands like Aldi and Adidas and many more. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It's been a while.
It's been a while. We worked on a brand of yours in the past,
2 years,
not long
2 years ago. Yeah.
And it's incredible to see you blow up in such a short amount of time. And I want to move back a little bit to your background from, was it selling T-shirts at 14 years old?
Yeah.
To an interesting venture you had at 20 years old. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, taking you back a little bit, I actually started off as a social media influencer before it was really influencer. It was on a platform called Tumblr. This is back in the day where Tumblr was the place where people get content. It was like a Instagram and a Pinterest merged together. Had about 32 million followers there. And it was a huge audience that really showed me that you can make money online. That was the first thing. I was like, okay, you can sell money, or I mean, you can get paid by impression, you can get paid by clicks, you can get paid by sponsorships. It was such a fascinating thing for me as a 14-year-old. And so the first step, I was like, I'm gonna sell T-shirts. It's the lowest hanging fruit for anything. You get your designs, you print on a T-shirt, and you can sell it. And then that slowly evolved into affiliate marketing. Just jumped straight into affiliate marketing. And it was really funny because I didn't really understand that was affiliate marketing at the time, or what really the potentials were. I just knew that there were these platforms that had offers. And if I just get them signed up or converted, I get paid per conversion. And with so many followers, it was so easy to do this with no cost. So I was just banking 50, 60K a month as a 14-year-old. It was ridiculous. I had to use my mom's bank account to receive the money. And they're paying on PayPal, they're paying by wire. And so that is really what really got me into making money online and slowly evolve into something more substantial and more established into e-commerce as we know it now.
That's incredible. And into e-com, the first interesting, I caught this off your Instagram story, but at the age of 20 years old, you were selling, was it custom condoms? Specialized condoms. And tell me about that story.
Oh man, you found it. Wow, you do your research. So that product really came when I saw a funny meme actually on Instagram or Twitter, one of those. It was this picture of a ramen noodle seasoning, the corner of it being ripped off, and it was found in a guy's wallet. So it was like my girlfriend thought I was cheating because I had this in my wallet, but it's really just ramen noodle seasoning. And I was like, wait, that's actually, they actually look really similar, like condom wrappers and ramen noodle seasoning. So it gave me the idea. It's like, what if I create a product of condoms that looks like ramen noodle seasoning? It says shrimp flavor in front because it's so funny. It literally looks like ramen noodle, like a pack of ramen noodle. It was hilarious. And I launched it at 20 years old.
Incredible. And what kind of what have you learned from doing all of that? I mean, it's an incredibly unusual path for any 14-year-old, any 20-year-old, or anyone of any age to go through a journey like that, from building such an incredible following on Tumblr to selling t-shirts, making 50, 60 grand a month, to building a brand around condoms. What were your biggest struggles in that process?
It's trying to understand everything about a product and trying to predict the consequences of your actions. And I'll elaborate on that. When I was making the ramen noodle condoms, I didn't really think about to the extent of what regulations have to follow, the compliances. I was just like, I can go and source products because I was good at sourcing. I'm good at product design. I'm just gonna make it and not worry about it. And so I make all that stuff. I get it to the port and I got stopped at the port. They're like, do you have your FDA documents? I was like, no, but let me just go apply for it. It's easy, right? Well, not as easy because condoms turns out to be a type 2 medical device in the United States, meaning that it's on the same level as a glove that you wear at the hospital because of the protective equipment. Meaning that if I were to get this product certified by the FDA, it would have costed me close to $250,000 just to get a certification saying that I could sell this. And so I went through all that trouble of making a product and ended up not being able to import it. And so like we were able to sell it for a little while just because we had a small inventory of it, but you couldn't move them in containers. It just, you wouldn't pass that at all. And so that really was a price lesson for me in how you have to really plan ahead and trying to predict the somewhat like the things that you don't really think that far about, because when you make a product, you don't think about the compliance and the regulations that you have to have. You just think about the product. So that's really what really drove me to get deeper into sourcing and logistics, like trying to understand the entire process so people don't run into the same issue today. But even before the condoms, I had a coloring book line, I had a cookbook, I had candles, I had bath bombs. So I had like a bunch of products already. This wasn't just my first product. It was just really the first product I ran into that had compliance issues.
That's incredible. And through that experience, you transitioned into drop shipping for a little bit, and then now back to building a brand, an incredible brand called Doe Lashes. Now, what was your experience in that process?
Drop shipping was eye-opening for me. I did drop shipping in order to try to understand what the hype is about. This was like 2018, 2019, and it was so hot. And coming from a branding background, like by 2018, I had 6-7 brands already that are branded, fulfilling in the US. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just try to see like how to do dropshipping. I just want to learn and see like what are people doing. It was insane. Like the amount of infrastructure that you need to build a dropshipping brand was significantly different than doing a branded store. And what I learned was that it really comes down to a few things to making a successful dropshipping store. Number one is the product. That's the biggest thing. Like the right product, you can have the crappiest product page, you can have the crappiest ad. But if you have a product that is so amazing to the consumer, like something that changes the way that they see things, it will scale. It will sell so much. And I was like, dude, I have to work so hard in order to hit those numbers that I'm hitting with dropshipping. Like my first month dropshipping, we did 1.2 million. You know how long that takes me to do if I'm doing branded stuff? Because for branded stuff, you have to worry about the overall site experience. You have to worry about copy. You have to hire designers to make sure that your brand is cohesive. You have to worry about logistics of shipping the stuff through containers. You have to make sure that your operations are right, your customer support's right. Dropshipping, I literally posted, I was selling a bathroom shelf at the time, a corner shelf that you can stick to your bathroom that could hold like 15 pounds. And everyone was like, wow, you could do that? Boom, 1.2 mil in the first month. And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? But there was a lot of logistical issues of running a dropshipping store that I learned that was definitely eye-opening as well. People have different sets of expectations, but there are also timelines that you have to work with that you don't see in the branded side. So for dropshipping, obviously the model is that you sell something and you buy it off Alibaba or your agent. Because I've never done that in the past, everything I had was always in the US. I now have to worry about a 22-day delivery time. I have to worry about sending the messages to the customers to make sure that we set expectations to tell them that, hey, something's got to be a little bit late, we got to ramp up customer support. At one point, we had 16 VAs running our customer support.
Wow.
We were worrying about chargebacks. We had payment processing issues. We had products coming in defective. And in the end, I'm like, dude, it's so stressful to run this thing. So that's really what led me to start like what I'm working on right now. So the drop shipping firm that I'm running called Drophouse is because I had all that issues with my own drop shipping store. In the end, we did about $3.6 million in 2 months in the end. And we were actually using Chronos for our email. So you guys drove a significant amount of our revenue. But it was at the end, it was just so unsustainable. I was like, what can I learn from this? Like, what can I change about this thing so I can really change it for everyone else? So it really comes down to two things. Number one is quality of the product, and number two was the speed of the delivery. I think that dropshipping as a business model is incredible. If you tell any business owner, anyone in the D2C space that you can operate your business without putting 30% of your revenue into inventory at all times, it's brilliant. Like if you look at those balance sheets and our income statement, you're going to notice that a huge chunk of our money and our cash flow is tied into inventory. So the dropshipping business model is actually really good. But the issue is people are using very, very slow delivery process, and people are working with people that do not care about the quality. So I want to change all that. And that's why I'm more in the B2B side of stuff now, because I know what to fix.
Makes sense. So basically what's happened is you crushed it in drop shipping, and you realized that there were very, very major roadblocks to succeeding in this business model, specifically quality of product and speed of delivery. And now you're solving that with Drophouse for other people. I think that's huge. What about the transition into building a brand? What could you tell people who are used to the lifestyle and the whole mindset of building a dropshipping business, and how do you make that switch to building a brand? And what are the pitfalls that you typically see?
When you think about a brand and how that differs to a dropshipping store, there's really a few things that you can really identify. Number one is the customer experience. Good brands have a very cohesive customer experience from the first touch point of their ad all the way to their unboxing experience, even to the post-purchase emails. Everything has to be very cohesive. And one of the things that people who transition into brand stuff need to understand is that your entire customer journey now has to be in one place. It has to unify. You can't just run an ad and expect things to go well anymore, because once people get the ad, but they get a really bad package, they get the wrong design, or they get like something in a brown box, they're going to be like, well, this doesn't feel any different than buying from Wish. I can just buy this from eBay. When people shop online now, they want the experience of shopping. A lot of people don't understand that it's not just about buying products anymore. E-commerce, it's about the experience of being treated like a real customer. Why do you think people like to go into designer stores to sit down, drink a cup of champagne and try on their stuff? Because they want that experience. Now, how do we emulate that in an online store? You could do that through better post-purchase emails. You could do that through SMS. You could do that through, brand X stuff within your box. People want that, and people are willing to pay the premium for that. Otherwise, they'll just go on Amazon. Like, why don't we just start an Amazon store, right? That's really what sets a branded store from everything else. It's that number one. Number two is the quality of the product needs to be a lot higher. The standard of it as well. When you think of the drop shipping model, you don't think about retention. No one ever thinks about retention when drop shipping, because the expectation is that once you buy or once you sell someone something, they're probably going to come back because they know that your product is bad. And you don't really care about it because you're always going to acquire new customers. The fact of the reality for branded store now is that without retention, your business will not survive. The cost of acquisition on Facebook is increasing. You're having the iOS 14 problems. And so now the strategy for every DTC brand now is, how do we get more money out of every single one of our existing customers? How do we increase the lifetime value of these customers so that, we don't have to acquire new customers or not acquire as many customers? And how do you do that? The ad that you have for your brand is really what hooks someone in. You get them in the door. But your product is what ultimately drives them to buy it again and again. You cannot settle for something that you just get off AliExpress with no QA, with a brown, white, plain box that is sometimes in Chinese. You can't do that anymore. The level of quality of the product, the packaging, even the box that it comes in, and the post-purchase communications, the reviews requests, transaction emails needs to be very cohesive.
100%. And what we've seen across the years is that back in 2017 and 2018, when we first started Chronos, about 80% of our clients are drop shipping in some shape or form. Mm-hmm. And today, only about 20% of our clients are in drop shipping exclusively. And a big reason for that is that shift in what you just explained in customer experience, quality and standard of products, and ultimately retention of customers. And the idea is that you just cannot candy wrap and beautify, a shitty product. If it's a shitty product, it's a shitty product. Yeah. But now that you have an amazing product, what's next? What about the marketing aspect of retention? What have you done successfully for Doe Lashes?
Definitely creating the community aspects of it. We've done a lot of efforts in social media, and we try to make sure that the entire flow connects with each other. So within Instagram, we have our Instagram shop. So when people look at our Instagram, they can actually shop directly. So we removed that friction of shopping. Our TikTok is actually one of our biggest levers that we've pulled recently in terms of retention and acquisition. So anyone that looks through our TikTok and our social media account on there, there's actually a link in our bio, and we actually created a store for people to shop at. So instead of clicking the link and having to go on our site and shop, we created a web store for people to go buy directly within that. So every step of the way in terms of retention is about removing barriers and frictions for our consumers, because the less that they have to click, the higher that they'll convert is kind of our belief. And our retention effort goes beyond just social media. We use our SMS not just for promotional purposes, but as a conversational marketing campaign for the customers. This means sending them nice messages during promotional times. For Mother's Day, we're most likely just got to send them a nice message instead of trying to get them to buy our stuff. It really shows them that we care for them as a consumer and that we don't always just want to buy stuff, sell stuff to them. There are brands, I would say, that approaches SMS wrong, is that they treat it as a marketing channel. But I would say that you need to treat SMS as a very intimate and very delicate communication channel for your customer, because the inbox is really, really personal. And you do not want to break your trust with them. The other thing is email. We leverage emails not just for sales, but with content too. Very informative content emails. We use SMS we also use email to gather user feedback for our products. We survey our customers very often on what we can do to improve our site experience. And using retention, talking to our existing customers as a way to get a feedback loop on how we can improve our products, improve our website, improve their experience. So for the next time they come back, they're like, wow, they actually listened to me. And I actually feel like I'm being a part of this brand. That's really crucial.
This echoes what I've heard from Ezra Firestone when I had him on the show. Shout out to Ezra from smartmarketer.com. Go check out smartmarketer.com. He uses a very similar strategy in leveraging email and the retention channels as a way of closing the loop on customer feedback. Now, where I see a lot of brands kind of fall short is having that feedback come in and having that conversation, but not closing the loop with an action and taking action on kind of the feedback that they got. And I get that, because there are just so many, right? It's just so many. And how do you prioritize what you take action upon and what you kind of just say, sorry, we cannot do that?
For the most part, we standardize what we ask. Like our answers are pretty standardized, but broad enough that it should cover for most things. So we use Airtable to create our form. We can also use Typeform. And within the option is a multiple choice thing. And we try to cover enough categories that it standardizes to like 8 different answers. But then we also allow them to select others. So for the most part, we're able to group a lot of the responses and feedback easily because it's categorized now. And for the other stuff, we figure out what they are and we triage it into one of these categories if they don't know how to, categorize it. And then what we do is that we rank it from the easiest to implement to the hardest to implement, but also what is driving the largest impact and what is driving the least amount of impact. And we try to balance it. So eventually we'll work our way down the list, but prioritizing it comes down to us. What can we spend the least amount of time and money on for the largest impact? These are always going to be on top. And then you rank it low, going down the list. Because I would say that's how you should develop any company, even developing apps. There is always the path of least resistance with the highest output and efficiency that you always prioritize.
Makes sense. In a brand, so it's ease and impact. What do you prioritize in terms of impact? Is that what drives growth for the company? Or is it what drives customer satisfaction? Or is it kind of overlapped in some shape or form?
Yeah, I'll be lying to you if I say that I'm going to prioritize customer satisfaction over revenue. But it's not that we don't care about it. It's just that for us, for a brand, unless we grow, we won't have the money and resources to implement the things that really satisfy customers. So always the top of the list will always be, what is the thing that would drive up our conversion rate? What is the thing that would increase our AOV? How do we decrease the expenses of shipping stuff? And then we're like, okay, can we use the money that we now just generated from growing the business into hiring a developer to create a better landing page for the customers? Can we do things like a better box or a better product improvement, if their feedback is on the product itself? But you cannot change things that doesn't generate revenue in sake of customer experience unless you have the money to do so. That's just a fact of it. So always revenue generating first, and then we use that money to reinvest into improving customer experience.
Makes sense. Now, Jason, you're 24, 23 this year? 23 this year. Now I'm 25. So in the grand scheme of things, we're still pretty young. Here's an interesting one. I got asked this question from a mentor of mine. So I'm asking everyone this question now. What would you tell if kind of looking forward into like 10 years from now and you're 33, what would 33-year-old Jason say to Jason today?
Oh man, I definitely think even like looking back to like telling myself something to do that I need to do, it's definitely about drawing out on all my plans and weighing all my options. And that will apply to everything that I do moving forward as well. Because I would say that I've been in this industry for so long. I started when I was 14. And the issue is that I try to do things myself and I try to just move forward with one thing without weighing out all the options. And sometimes that leads to good stuff. Sometimes that just sets me back 20 steps. So one of the things that I personally need to do better is planning out my decisions and understanding the consequences of it. Same idea of like what happened with the condoms is that sometimes you really need to plan 10 steps ahead and understand what each of your decisions will result in, because that's how you're able to weigh your options. That's what we do when we do sourcing. When we source something for people, we typically make 5 to 10 different prototypes. And based on those prototypes, we see if those prototypes will work as intended or will it break earlier than we expect. Maybe the thing is easier to break if you drop it over this prototype that doesn't break if you drop it. But like in life, I think you should approach things just like you would do a prototype. You need to understand what all the available options that you have, weigh your options and really think through it. Think what happens if you do this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and then make the steps. Because oftentimes we think about what's immediately that's going to happen. We don't really think about what are the consequences of this 10 years from now. And that's one of the things that I want to improve on too, because I'm not good at it.
Are you a big reader?
I wish I do. I have bought so many books that I think will magically go into my head if I read, but it's it's hard when you're working in your business because there's just no time to do it. But I love to read once I get time.
I'm the same, and I like the idea of just-in-time knowledge. So when I'm facing a certain problem or issue, someone else that does this very well that we both know is Vince Wong, Vince Wang. Shout out to Vince, and he does this as well. His process is when he's facing a problem in business, he would go to Amazon and he would buy all the books related to that topic, and he would set them all on the table and kind of just browse through them all at once. And I think that's a smart thing to do, because there's just so much information and knowledge that that's available out there, and it's very difficult to discern what's useful and what's not until you have an actual problem to resolve or work with. What's your process of coming to good ideas and mentors?
Definitely talking it out with people that I respect, people that I know have done it in the past. Having great mentors has been extremely helpful to me, because they most likely went through the same problem that I had, and they're able to tell me what they did and what was the consequences of it, whether it fell or maybe it succeeded. There's really nothing better than books from people that you respect and learning and getting mentorship from people that you respect. And I'm not talking about just paying a guru for mentorship, but really it could be your dad. Like if you feel like your dad is someone who's able to think about problems and break it down really easily, just talk to him and ask him for advice. These could be people that have certain character traits that you feel like is able to dissect your problem better. Someone who is very logical in how they think, someone who's not involved emotionally. Or you can go to someone who you really respect in the business sector and ask them for advice. But really, mentors and advisors can be anyone, that as long as you know that they have certain qualities that you want to get, you can go to them for your issues.
I just want to latch on what you just said. Someone who is not emotionally involved in that decision making, I think that's invaluable. And just because of that alone, the person that you're speaking to doesn't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert in what you're doing. Oftentimes, it's kind of what I found, at least, it's, we're working with issues that are kind of internal roadblocks and self-belief issues versus figuring out how to run Facebook ads, for example.
Yeah.
So, question back to you: who are your go-to people or mentors that you go to first when you have issues in life or in business?
First thing is probably the closest person to me. Her name is Michelle Fong. She was the first beauty YouTuber back in 2009, founded Ipsy, the billion-dollar company, and exited. And in many ways, she's very similar to me in how we think. She's 33, actually, which is kind of funny because you're like, what would the 33-year-old say to me? So she's actually 10 years older than me. And I just feel like a lot of stuff that I'm running into, whether it is in partnerships, in like internal conflicts, mostly like I'm not asking her for like how to run Facebook ads. I'm asking her like, here's the issues I'm running. How did you resolve it when you were in my shoes? Talking about like equity, talking about relationships. It's good to talk to people who've been in your shoes. That's really it.
Incredible. And if kind of from the perspective of someone who doesn't have the network or I guess high level mentors to begin with, what would your advice be in looking for someone you trust?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't like to use Michelle as an example sometimes because she's so high profile that it's unattainable, right? But like before I met her, I was just asking advice from my friends. Like these are friends who are doctors, nurses, or they just work a 9-to-5 job that are completely unrelated to what I'm doing. And it's good to get their thoughts if I respect their thinking process. If you really just think about how people approach problems, everyone has a mental framework that they follow, whether it is the first principles thinking process that Elon Musk used, where they break it down to the core, or someone who is able to dissect your issues very well and be like, okay, you're running into this problem because you did this and this is how you think. You need to stop thinking this way. Like, they don't have to be subject matters in what problems you're running into. They just need to be able to understand you, how you think, and be like, this issue actually might be happening because of you. You need to look back at yourself and see what you can change on yourself. And based on what I know about you, I know that you're very irrational. Sometimes you like to jump to conclusion. We need to stop doing that, and we need to do this instead. So talking to my friends, talking to my parents, talking to people who I know in the past, but don't talk to that often anymore, but they know me, or because I respect their line of thinking very well, helps a lot. You don't have to have a high profile mentor. You really just need people that understands you, because sometimes the problem is internal. Sometimes the problem is you, you know, and that's a hard truth that you need to hear. And that would come from the people around
you. I love that so much, because it takes, in the kind of in the space that we're at, in the entrepreneurial e-com industry, so to say, it's very, very common for people to kind of bash on people who work a 9-to-5 job, who may just be happy where they're at, right? And there's no reason to bash them out for working 9-to-5.
That. I don't like that. I don't like the whole you need to drop out of school narrative too. I'm very firmly against it, even though I did drop out. But I dropped out after I was making like, 100K in a month. Like I dropped out when I knew I could do it. But like, if you're just randomly asking people to drop out when they're in school and have no career, no backup plan, it's so irresponsible, Like, you could definitely do e-commerce and go to school as a backup. And once you make it in e-commerce, go drop out if you want to. But like, just the notion that, you shouldn't work a 9-to-5 job, you should drop out immediately. It's so irresponsible. I dislike people that do that.
100%. And I started Chronos in my dorm room, and I finished school just because. And and it's that's just the reality that I don't think a lot of people realize that. But it's not that, most entrepreneurs are not crazy, wild, insane risk takers. They always, typically have a plan B, and there's always an alternative.
It's calculated risk. It's all calculated risk. People think that entrepreneurs just YOLO into a thing. You don't YOLO into a thing. You take calculated risk, saying that, okay, if I leave what I do right now, what is the runway that I have in my bank account? Okay, if I can only survive on 4 months with no income, I can realistically prove out this model in 1.5 months. If I can't do it anymore, I'll just go back to my job. You need to take really calculated risks. You don't YOLO into entrepreneurship with no backup plan. People have that misconception.
That's a suicide. That's practically
exactly.
a suicide.
Yeah. And one last thing that I like to touch on is that, at least on this topic, is when you are trying to keep your head above the water, you're never going to be creative. You're never going to be making the big decisions. So like, if you're struggling right now, like if you don't have work and if you don't have an income and you're trying to make an e-commerce, you're going to make decisions that may not be the best for you because of very instant gratification of what this seems like a good idea. Like, my best ideas and my most creative ideas actually came when I started having a passive income, because I don't have to worry about making enough money for me to get food or pay rent anymore. Once you have that set, you can start thinking about the bigger stuff. So like, if you're listening to this podcast, you're figuring out if you need to jump into e-commerce immediately and like with no income whatsoever, no, get a job, make sure that you have some consistency in income, and work on your passion in e-commerce after work. Work on it on the weekends. Like, don't just jump into
it. And that's just great advice. That's great advice. And talking about advice, what would you tell 14-year-old Jason? Now we're taking you back in time, knowing what you know now. If you had to choose just one thing,
work for someone else. I'm very serious about that. So Josh, think about it. When you built Chronos, did you have to build your internal systems and SOPs and systems by yourself? It sucked, right? And you failed a lot. You most likely had issues. Customers were pissed. I went through the same exact thing. It took me so long to build the right systems and processes. I didn't even know what SOPs were until 3 years ago, But like, The reason why is because I never worked for anyone else. I built the systems on my own, thinking that it was the right move to do, and it fell so many times, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost opportunity costs, and also on like refunding people that I messed up on, because I always refund people if I mess up on something. But you can always draw back on that the system broke and that's why the mistakes were made. If I were to work for someone else, I can learn on who to hire and who not to hire, what kind of systems and processes will work on different companies. Agencies and e-commerce stores are a little different. You can learn on someone else's dime. I was learning on my own dime. When I fuck up, I lose money, But if you work for someone else and you make a mistake, it sucks, but at least you're not losing out on your own stuff. And once you learn the systems and processes, maybe in like 6 to 8 months, go start your own thing. But like, seriously, if I had to go back and tell myself to go do something, I would have go intern for someone. I would have worked for free. That would have saved me so much more money if I just worked for free. And
the thing is, when I have conversations with friends about, because my peers are just graduating university right about this time, so in Singapore, and I get this question quite a bit. What should I what should I do? This option versus this option, this firm versus this firm. Just close friends asking me questions like that, and my opinion has always been optimize for the most amount of learning. Optimize for learning, because that's what stacks up. That's what compounds. Exactly. Your salary isn't something that compounds. And I think that's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, back to Doe Lashes. What's next for your brand?
We're going into the eye category. So we're going to pivot away from lashes and owning the eye category. We're going to rebrand into Doe Eyes in the next year. And we're going to put a lot of investment into R&D. We're currently working with the FDA right now for certifications on certain things in the eye category. So really owning eyes, like everything, I'm talking about anything related to eyes, contact lenses, eye drops, mascara, eyeliner. This area, we're going to own this. This is it. This is what will take us into a $50, $80, $100 million valuation if you own an entire category. What we're doing right now for lashes is just the playing ground. We're testing out our brand. We're testing out our messaging. We're testing out how consumers react to things. This is just like whatever you see that we do right now isn't exactly what we're meant to do. We're just testing. Like we're profitably testing, which is the good part. But like our end goal is a lot bigger. Like within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to own the eye category. We're going to take a lot of the inspirations from South Korea. We're going to do a lot of research and development in Japan, because I think Japanese manufacturers are really good at engineering and R&D. And taking all that technology that we have and bringing it into the United States, because that's the market that we feel like we're most confident in. And then we can expand into other countries in Europe, Asia eventually. But that's our grand plan.
That sounds really exciting. What are some brands that you personally look up to in your journey thus far?
Yeah, there's a ton. Just anyone that's able to own categories is always what I think is the one that made it. We're talking about the Hems. We're talking about Away owning the travel sector. Yeah. They have 5% of the market share. Yeah, they in 2 years they own 5% of the entire luggage market. But in 2 years, it's insane. Yeah, and then there are companies like I love Olipop. They do soda, like low calorie soda. Like owning categories is such an important thing that people don't realize. When you think about the brand that you want to create, do not settle on just one single product. Think about what is the category they want to go after, because that's really what will increase your valuation, increase your product expansion. You can't just sell one product forever. That's how you go down. You need to think a little bit bigger. If I sell, coffee right now, can I expand into other energy drinks? If I sell travel luggages right now, can I expand into other travel accessories? Can I own the entire travel segment altogether? Going for like laptop sleeves, going for the headphones, going for the eye mask, think a lot bigger. Think about the 5-year plan. the 10-year plan you want to go that far, or just think about where you want to exit.
Where do you do this is just gold. This is gold. When do you start thinking about that move into building into a category versus building a product? Do you start with that before you start a brand, or do you kind of evolve into that gradually once you figure out that?
There's not a set path. Like, we really thought about the categorization of our brand a year into building it. Like, right off the bat, we were just thinking about doing lashes, but then we're like, we start looking at other lash brands in our industry who are on a decline because they're so confined to selling lashes, probably because of their name. Like, some of our like competitors have their brand name literally having lashes in there, and nothing else. At least we have Doe. Like, we can transition Doe to Doe Eyes, Doe Beauty. So there's a huge expansion effort there. What we did doesn't have to be replicated. Again, none of the stuff that we're doing right now is a perfect formula. There's no formula to succeeding. You can think about the categories when you start, or you can think about the categories down the line once you feel like you're hitting your ceiling. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing that you need to do is think bigger. Every time that you do something, it's like, what can I do to take it to the next level? And instead of trying to expand horizontally, think about if you can expand vertically. Can you own more of your process? Can you own more of the categories? And one last tip for brands, like anyone looking at brands, look into your finances. No one ever talks about finances, and it's boring, but man, I hate people that like shows off their Shopify dashboard, because, oh my God, you do not make that much money. Everyone's net margins, and I know this because I'm in the sourcing side. Like, I know everyone's margins. They're at like 5 to 7% net margins, and they're flexing the Shopify dashboard. And I'm like, dude, you need to take into account your transaction fees, your pick and pack fees, your shipping postage fees. You got to take it into account into your overhead costs like payroll. You got to look into sales tax too. That's accounted into your Shopify dashboard. After that, you got to go into marketing, which is variable. Facebook can sometimes charge you on a good day or charge you on a bad day. You got to hire agencies, the people that run your emails and SMS, there's that fee into it. So anyone that ever shows you numbers on their Shopify, ask them for their P&L. They're not making that much money. But look into your finances. Sometimes you could be losing money. You don't realize that you could be losing money.
How do you begin to consolidate all of that? Say someone is kind of stumbling into entrepreneurship and stumbled into building a brand. Where would you begin with consolidating all of that data?
You could use apps. Like, there are apps like Lifetimely that you can use. I'll break all your data down. You can use spreadsheets. But really, there's only a few things that you need to look at. It's not as complicated as people think. There's this thing called a COD, which is the cost of delivery. And the idea of that is everything that it costs to make your product and ship it to your warehouse. So the product cost, the freight cost, any storage fees, like anything that is related to your product. And then you have your marketing fees, like, or the variable costs. So these are like payroll. Not payroll. You have your marketing fees and any agency fees, sales tax. These things are variable. And then you have your overhead costs, like your rent, your office, car, and then payroll, which is fixed every single month. Once you break these things down, you just know exactly how much you're making money, how much money you're making on each order, because once you break it down, you have a chart that you look at. You know exactly how much money you're making off each order. And sometimes that will surprise you. You're most likely making a lot less than. Oh, not to mention app costs. Every single app that you install, whether it's $9.99, $29.99, it adds up, dude. Like, we're paying, I think at one point we were paying like $8K a month on app costs, because some of the apps are performance-based, so they'll charge you 1% for like an upsell item that they do. Some of them are $29, some of them are $3.99. Some of them are $800. Oh, dude, they add up. People do not think about their finances. That's the one biggest thing. If you were to take away one thing from this podcast, look to your finances. That's it.
What are some metrics or benchmarks that you would look at or kind of aim towards? Profit, margins? Is there any number that you would recommend?
Your net margin should be anywhere between 15 to 20% for you to be sustainably growing the business. Anything below that, you're done. You're gonna be keeping your head above the water. The reason why is because anything below a 15% net margin doesn't give you enough room to hire and grow your expansion. So you're gonna have to take out a loan, go to Clearbank, whatever you want to do. You cannot do any R&D. If you work with a lawyer and they charge you a retainer, they send you an invoice for $4,000. Boom, that's all your margins for the month. It's gone. Revenue is always soft. Expenses are always hard. Expenses, if they charge you $5,000 for expenses, that's $5,000 out of your account. If you make $5,000 in revenue, that doesn't go into your account because it's soft. And so the other benchmark is always about AOV. When you think about e-commerce revenue, like what are the things that really push e-commerce revenue up? Is one, increasing AOV. Two is increasing traffic, and three is increasing conversion. Nothing else outside of that matters. Those are the only three things you need to think about. And then secondary is obviously retention, but you do not get anything in retention unless you bring in new customers. So as long as you're able to push these three levers, increase AOV with upsells, bundling, increase conversion rate by optimizing your on-site experience. The type of traffic that you bring in also affects your conversion rate, by the way. People don't realize that. And then overall traffic, you just got to do a lot of marketing to acquire those customers. But once you put all that into a single formula, you're able to grow your business a lot easier. Just breaking down your costs, but also bringing down what are the levers that you need to push and up and down in order to drive growth in your business. That's it.
Incredible. Jason, do you have any last tips or advice for people listening, wanting to hit the milestones that you have achieved and then some?
Learn from people, listen to what they say, go on Twitter, read a lot. These are anyone that's making out content for these stuff have been through it. And instead of trying to make the same mistakes that they have, just learn from their mistakes. Like the biggest growth that I've had was just reading on Twitter on what people's strategies are, being in the right circles, watching a lot of YouTube. Although I'll say a little bit easy on the YouTube side because they're usually trying to sell you something. But I love Twitter. Twitter's like where I learn most of my stuff. So definitely go on Twitter. Follow the people that you respect and have conversations with them. Most of them will more than happy to answer questions that you have. Or at least the good people are it doesn't cost us anything to tell you anything. The e-commerce is such a big industry that I don't mind teaching. I love teaching.
And talking about teaching, we were talking a little bit about this. What's coming up in June? You got something incredible lined up. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is actually the first play we're announcing it, but we are creating a e-commerce masterclass where I will teach you everything it takes to go from 0 to 1 in e-commerce, including how to register your business, what kind of things to use, credit cards to use, types of retention marketing that you need to do, how to do those, the whole shebang. That's something that we're launching in June, probably early July. So look forward to that. Stay tuned on my Twitter, Instagram. Yeah.
That's on masterclass.com, right?
No, we're not building the masterclass.com. We're building our own version. So
okay,
it's gone.
And you got some incredible partners on that project. So I'm really looking forward to that course. It's going to be a huge one. I've never heard of. Can we talk about that? Your who you got involved in the course?
Yeah. So this course is sponsored by Klaviyo, which is the shirt you're wearing.
Hell yeah.
For SMS. We got Theo for payroll. We got Gorgeous for customer support. We have Shopify is endorsing it. I'm trying to close Alibaba right now, which is the other one that I'm really hoping to get. We have Smile for loyalty and retention. We have Rebuy for upsell, Settle for financing.
Crazy.
We have 29 sponsors. This is the only course I could confidently say on earth that has this many endorsements because of how good it is. The production for this will be movie level because I'm investing $50,000 into production just to film, hiring a crew. Yeah. Like we're bringing in producers, directors, screenwriters, a bunch of editors. There's going to be 150 videos in this program that's going to teach you from everything from having an idea on a piece of paper or even how to think about having that idea to actually launching a product, the marketing, and even how do you scale? What do you do for financing? How do you hire people? What do you look for when you hire people? Dude, it is a masterclass for e-commerce.
Incredible. And Jason, what's your Twitter handle? How do people connect with you?
Find me on Twitter at Eggro, EGGROLI, not LL, it's LI.
ROLI.
Yes.
Eggro.
Yes, couldn't get Eggro.
And on Instagram, you're at Pug.
Yes, sir.
That's incredible. All right, quick story. How do you get that name? How do you get that handle?
I think this is like 2014. There's a guy, like an old guy, like talking about someone in his 40s that owns the username Pug, who like doesn't use it at all, has 2 pictures of like him and his dog. And I just messaged him. I was like, hey, dude, can I take this username off you? And he's like, yeah, sure. It was so early on, like back then, no one cared about these username stuff. So I got it really early on.
That's insane. All right, guys, go check out Jason on Instagram at Pug and Twitter at EGGROLI. And is there a website that people can check out if you're interested in Drophouse and some of your other services?
Yeah, cow.com. COOOOW.com with 4 O's, cow.com.
Cow.com with 4 O's. Jason, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the E-commerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.